joined.
Okay.
So I think what we'll do is we'll have all the non-BFSA members muted. Um, if something comes up, we're pretty casual with our meetings, so you can just click the raise your hand and we'll just do it that way from a background noise standpoint,
Great.
if that's okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. We ready?
Yes.
All right. Welcome to this special meeting of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. This meeting was called for a single purpose of reviewing the proposed labor agreement between the City of Buffalo and the Police Benevolent Association. A meeting packet was distributed to you yesterday by email. Before we begin, I'll request that Executive Director Rowe take a roll call.
Thank you. Vice Chair Jurasek.
Present.
Secretary Floss.
Present.
Director Sanfilippo.
Present.
Mayor Byron Brown.
Present.
And County Executive Mark Polenkars will be attending shortly.
Okay. So once Mr. Cornell comes, we'll have quorum and we can vote. The City of Buffalo has negotiated a proposed labor agreement with the PBA, which was approved by the union membership this past Monday, January 8th. Our packet includes the mayor's submission letter, a copy of this contract, a summary that was provided by Commissioner Dowell, and a summary of key contract terms as compiled by the BFSA staff. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Bryce Link and Executive Rowe to discuss the terms, costs, and findings and recommendations for this contract. Bryce and Jeanette.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the board this morning. As Director Floss mentioned, we are meeting for the sole purpose to review the proposed collective bargaining agreement between the City of Buffalo and the Buffalo Police Benevolent Association. So a bit of background on this unit. There are currently 812 budgeted positions in the city. 802 of those are union positions and 10 are exempt positions. As of January 1st, 2024, there were 727 filled union positions. This unit covers multiple titles, and those titles include police patrol officer, which were 485 filled positions, police lieutenants, which were 94 positions, police captains, which were 20 positions, police inspector with 2 positions filled, detective with 114 positions filled, and detective sergeant with 12 positions filled. The proposed salary increase are extended to the police exempt employees per the city charter, and those 10 positions are all filled and are as follows. Commissioner of Police, 2 deputy commissioners of police, and then 7 police chiefs. Currently, there are 75 vacant positions, which is approximately a 9.2% vacancy rate. The employees are funded through the general fund, and this contract was approved by membership on January 8th, 2024. Now, the previous CBA expired on June 30th, 2019, and in July of 2022, a arbitration award was awarded, which provided a 3% increase for fiscal year 2019-20 and a 3.25% increase for fiscal year 2021. Those amounts compound and were carried forward into the 22-23 and then the current 23-24 and 24-27 financial plan. And this is prior to the recently settled CBA. The CBA that we're discussing today spans the time period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. So it covers 4 years, but our analysis covers this 4-year period plus the 2 years through the end of the current financial plan. So we'll be looking out through 2027. So there are some retro increases. There was a 3% increase retroactive to July 1, 2021. Then on July 1, 2022, a second retro increase of 4%. Then a 4% increase on July 1, 2023, which is the current fiscal year, with the next 4% increase scheduled to go into effect on July 1, 2024. And then for fiscal years 25 and 25, 26 and fiscal year 26, 27, those are currently zeros because the current CBA expires as of June 30th, 2025. In addition to the percent increases, there is a $20 a year increase for longevity. So as of June 30th, 2020, that amount is $195 per year. So each year it's increasing by 20. So as of July 1, 21, $215 increasing to $235 as of July 1, 22, $255 as of July 1, 23, which is the current fiscal year. And then for next fiscal year, July 1, 2024, that increases to $275. Now that's per year, and it caps at 25 years for this calculation. Health insurance, there is a change in regards to the number of years new employees contribute. So any new hires after approval of this ratification of this contract, those new employees will contribute for 10 years. Their contributions are 15% for family and 25% for single coverage. Currently, prior to this agreement, the contribution was 4 years for all those hired after July 1, 2015. And then anybody hired prior to July 1, 2015, there are no required contributions.
Bryce, on the health insurance, I would like to put my objection to having family, not the family coverage, having a lower percentage than the single coverage. That I still believe that if you look at most health insurance policies, you pay a higher percentage for family than you do for single. And I know this has happened in other contracts, but I wanted to make sure that I was noted as still objecting, and hopefully in the future that we will be able to change that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add something to that? I mean, I found that Chairman, to be equally as curious as to why the contributions for family would be 10% less than the contribution for single. Can someone explain that? Is that something that's offered by the healthcare providers as a means to get more family? I don't understand the logic behind that.
That would be a question for the negotiation team. These rates are negotiated between the two parties, the city and the PBA. And going back to the prior settled contract, those were the rates that were agreed upon at that time.
Yeah, I think it's something that's relative.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
We have Cavett Chambers on the call. Cavett, would you be able to talk to that question?
Good morning, everyone. Corporation Counsel Cavett Chambers. What I can tell you is that those are the contribution levels that are agreed to by the majority of all of our collective bargaining units at that 15% and 25% for single. That's the long-standing contribution rates that the city has attributed for the employees.
Thank you.
Yeah, I understand that part. What I'm curious about, though, is how is that all arrived at? Is it something that the healthcare providers encourage in order for them to get more, more benefits by volume?
That's a good question. I can look into that and respond back to that at a later time. Unfortunately, I don't have that information with me right now.
Okay, thank you.
But it is a good question. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting, Bryce. Go ahead.
Not a concern. We're here for the directors. So, right. moving on to residency, new hires after ratification of this contract will have a required residency for 7 years. This provision sunsets on June 30th, 2025. As a note, this provision was in the previous contract, and I believe it expired on June 30, 2019 previously. So there's been a period of a few years where new hires who are required to be city residents to sit for the exam to become patrol officers did not have a residency requirement going on for approximately 5 years now. Cost and funding, bear with me, I need to switch sheets here. So what we have here is a summary of the financial impact over the 6 years. So the first 2 years, fiscal year 22 and 23, are the 2 years of retro. So you see 3.2 million costs in fiscal year 22, increasing to 7.3. So approximately 10.5 million for the first 2 years. Current year budget impact is 11.2 million, and then increases to 15.6 million in the 3 out years. So these costs include the 3% and 4% that were discussed earlier, as well as the FICA contributions calculated at 7.65 and the pension contributions into the police fire retirement system at the New York State level. And that was calculated using 20%. And this also includes the longevity increase, which we see along near the bottom. So over the 6 years, the total cost of the salary increases, the percents only, is approximately $52.1 million. FICA is approximately $4 million. Pension contributions are 10.4 million. So fringe benefit is increasing by 14.4 million over the 6 years. And then the total cost of the CBA, well, hold on a second, the longevity increase over the 6 years is 3.2 million for a total cost of $69.7 million over the 6 years of the CBA. Now, the administration has identified some resources in the current financial plan. There was an accrual of 6.7 million for the prior years. And then included in the current 4-year plan, there was the salary adjustment line plus small percentage included in each year at the departmental level for $29.4 million. And the administration has also identified an additional $14 million of additional interest earnings. It's estimated this time. So those 3 buckets of resources total $50.2 million, which leaves a difference or a gap of approximately $19.5 million to be funded. CBA.
Bryce.
Yes.
In order to get an estimated interest income or resources of 14 million, where are you basing that principle from in order to generate those kinds of numbers? $14 million.
That is a portion of those ARPA funds the city is still holding at this time that have not been released.
Okay.
Now, this is above and beyond what was already included in their financial plan. The city is working on spending those funds down. There is no requirement by the federal government that those funds have to be reinvested into ARPA projects, so they're safe on that side. So current city estimate is $14 million above what they are currently have included in the financial plan. So
these are idle ARPA funds that are currently being invested. Those earnings you're estimating will be $14 million over the life of the contract.
It's the life of the 4-year plan.
Over the 4-year plan, but they will be trailing off by December 31, 26. Because the city has to obligate everything by December 31, 24 and disperse it by December 31, 26. So those are really estimates in the next 2.5 years.
All right, so this question may be somewhat premature, but Delano, have you reviewed this analysis?
Yes, I have. And a couple of key points. First, I want to thank Bryce for the information that he's providing so far. It's that our analysis based off the PBA contract year, which ends on 6/30/2025. And Bryce analysis is looking at the outer years, fiscal years 26 and 27. So those variances right there, that's almost $32 million that the city will plan to be able to figure out those shortfalls in their overall budget. But in regards
So
to
you're
our
in somewhat
analysis,
of an agreement where the gap is.
yeah, I mean, yeah, based off this analysis, the numbers do seem correct. The key thing in regards, we're looking at, can the city cover the cost of this current PBA agreement, which ends on 6/30/2025. But we also know that we have to plan and budget accordingly in regards to the outer years.
Okay.
Okay, Bryce, would you mind bringing, oh, thank you, you're ahead of me. So, and thank you, Bryce, for that presentation and for the financial analysis. And thanks to Commissioner Dowell and his budget director, Ray Nosworthy, for his work on this too. So where we end up from a financial standpoint, as Bryce mentioned, the gap over the 4-year financial plan is approximately $20 million. Now on here, I wanted to note that available fund balance as of the end of last fiscal year, June 30th, 2023, is 14.9 million. Not suggesting that this be used towards this contract, but it is a resource that's available to help the city fund this contract while they're figuring out their next financial plan and kind of addressing the revenues that are coming in as well as planned expenditures. So I do have a kind of a final funding gap as a range from approximately 5 million to 20 million, which when you look at the budget overall, is not a significant amount, but it is a funding gap. So our recommendation is that a gap plan should be developed to address the shortfall, and that we anticipate this to be addressed with the upcoming financial plan that will be submitted on May 1st. And we're also recommending, while this is being determined, how the gap closing plan is being determined, that the city consider implementing a hiring freeze to not add positions while this is all being worked out. Again, 85% of the city's budget consists of wages and benefits. So such a significant amount goes into it that, you know, in providing services and whatnot, and it needs to be contemplated when putting this gap plan together.
Jeanette, could I have a point of clarification
Yeah.
on that recommendation?
Yes.
Are you recommending that across the board of the city have a hiring freeze, or a hiring freeze as it relates to this, for the police, as it relates to this specific contract? In other words, we got 75 vacant positions there right now. Are we recommending that those positions along in the police department not be filled, along with other positions that the city has a vacancy percentage on their employees?
Good question, Director. And I appreciate the opportunity to clarify this. So I think what would make most sense is that there's a general hiring freeze, but there needs to be an override, so to speak, built into the freeze, because there's going to be areas where you absolutely need to hire. For example, there's a police and fire classes that need to come on in order to continue providing services. So what we're recommending is just to kind of halt the hiring while management determines where the needs are, and if there's not an immediate need, to hold off filling that position.
Okay, I'm going back to the police department. do we have an idea of these 75 vacant positions, how many of them are patrolmen?
Delano Dow, we do, I mean, we can identify where the openings are, but I think key to what Jeanette is saying, that we gotta look at the city overall budget and not solely concentrating on the PBA agreement. Yes, it do add additional costs to the city budget, but we are in position, as Jeanette stated, is to possibly use unassigned fund balance on top of unfilled positions, on top of balance sheet accruals. So we had salary adjustments to cover these unsettled contracts. And this is like the fourth contract that we settled, I believe, within the past fiscal year and a half. We understand the financial strengths of the city, and we kind of put everything on the table. Our goal is to increase revenues and monitor expenditures. But we've had discussions with the mayor and let's say a number of commissioners, just saying what are you doing going forward? It's just not the PBA agreement, just overall, like I said, trying to increase revenues and manage expenses. So we do accept and thank the information that the BFSA is providing. But
okay, well, obviously, you know, in the context of recommending a hiring freeze, this is in the context that I'm looking as it regards this contract. Now, if we're talking about a citywide hiring freeze, then you know, that would add more to a future discussion as to how will that affect or impact on the ability to provide services. And at the same time, I might request, are you going to be in contact with the state of New York, the governor's office, as it relates to trying to get some increased state aid, and not just for Buffalo? I think the policy around the state has always been increases in education aid with frozen levels of aid to municipalities. So does the administration intend on going to Albany and try to have discussions with the governor and their budget office as far as trying to get more aid for the city of Buffalo?
yes, that's the goal. First, in regard to hiring freeze, we know we have contractual obligations, and Andy, as you stated, we do have to continue to be able to provide city services. But in regards to come to the revenue, yes, state aim is our number one revenue source for the city budget. It's been stagnant since 2012, as we stated during the budget for fiscal year 2024. The goal is to hopefully work, we'll work with the state to get an increase in state aim and any other revenue lines that we can push to increase to offset the city's expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
To Director Sanfilippo's point, I think we would call it a soft hiring freeze. That obviously, if it was going to directly impact services in a major way, we would hold off on it. And I think on the second part of our recommendation is that if we're looking at police and fire for that matter, where there are mandatory overtime, that we need to make sure that we find the appropriate level of staffing, because some overtime would be cheaper than hiring additional people for a time. And we want to make sure that we minimize, you know, the expenses of these programs, so that we would have to look at that. And I think that all falls under what Executive Director Robe was talking about, essentially, I'm going to call it a soft freeze versus a hard freeze in all of this. And our recommendation is to Commissioner Dowell to really be careful about hiring.
I'd like to comment on the vocabulary we've been using. Gap, the words gap and shortfall keep coming up. Each of us have used those words multiple times, and each of those words has actually strong negative connotation in terms of running an institution. Excuse me, I'm just having a little difficulty. So those connotations, as I said, have a kind of negativity. But the point is, the city, this is 80% of the city's operating budget. And the city knows how to walk that tight wire, that high rope tight wire, and make sure it doesn't tip here or there. City Hall has a very good record in terms of staying on that tight wire. So personally, I'm more confident in terms of the city's ability to walk that wire and how should I put it, not tip us over into the extreme negative connotations of shortfall and gap. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with that gosh darn word, hiring freeze. Everybody flips out. The media, everyone flips out. Well, there are other tools that the city can use too that we didn't put on our list, like property tax revenue. I mean, the city could do that too. So I think this is going forward without that. How should I put it? A red flag of hazard and danger. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to work well. I trust City Hall. They have a very good record at this.
Thank you, Jeanette.
I have a question. I have a question for the staff. So who was sitting around the table after this analysis was performed and said, I got this idea. How about we throw in there a hiring freeze, recommend a hiring freeze?
Director Sanfilippo, we met yesterday with Commissioner Dowell and the budget director and discussed these recommendations. So this was something that we conversed about beforehand.
But as I said, we could have put down increased property tax revenue just as easily.
Right. We left it very broadly that, we anticipate that this will be addressed in the upcoming financial plan because there are multiple tools that are available to the city, as you mentioned.
Yes.
That was intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could have recommended other items in addition to perhaps a potential hiring freeze, but or possible hiring freeze. I'm just looking at the phraseology here. It's like we recommend a hiring freeze. That seems pretty concrete.
Draconian. It's draconian.
Well, we could certainly change that language. This is a recommendation from us as affirmed by you, the board. We could certainly reflect I don't know.
I mean, you know the media is going to jump all over a recommendation like this, just so you're aware.
And
we're recommending. I do like the language of a soft hiring freeze, and really, what I really want to convey here is that
maybe we could put in. I apologize, Jeanette, for interrupting, but I just want to say maybe it could be softened to the point where. A consideration be given to a hiring freeze or something softer than just we recommend a hiring freeze. I mean that hits like a ton. That hits like a ton of bricks.
That would be acceptable to me. That we leave these decisions certainly to our recommendations to the city to determine what they want to do with them. Consider a soft hiring freeze. I
would make that motion then to change the recommendation to consider a soft hiring freeze. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion further?
The only thing I might add to that is one, the terminology you could consider using is just saying vacancy control measures. That's one and the same, and there are a lot of different vacancy control measures you can do. That doesn't necessarily mean a hiring freeze, but it could also
Yeah, I like
mean you hold vacancies for a period of time. That's something the county has instituted at times where if there is a vacancy that opens up, instead of being able to immediately fill that vacancy, we say you have to wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, or some measure similar to that. The other point I would make is, at least in my view, I think probably one of the reasons why considering vacancy controls as in terms of what is being discussed today is particularly relevant is because vacancy control measures are something that can be administrated or instituted by the administration on an administrative level immediately, whereas a lot of the other things that were discussed, there are only certain periods of time in which you can even consider them. If you talk about, raising property taxes, well, you can't raise property taxes mid-year. That is an issue that has to wait until the next, budget cycle when that happens. You can decide to institute a hiring freeze or hold vacancies or, things like that today if you wanted to do that. So at least that's my thoughts on why, that might have been one of the more prescient recommendations for today versus maybe some of these other ones of like, find additional revenue streams or increase property taxes.
Sure.
Yeah. You know what? If I could, I think that makes good sense as far as the verbiage is concerned, that we recommend that the city consider vacancy control measures and leave it at that. Just get hiring freeze right out of the equation.
And that's fine if everyone would accept that unanimously in the change of language of the motion. That would be the motion at this point. Jeanette, will you still second it?
I agree with it completely. I second.
Okay. All right.
Can I add one thing, please? One thing is that we have, and we thank you guys for that, those responses, but we have really pushed to hold unfilled positions for the most part of fiscal year 24. We understand the financial constraints of the city, but we're not rushing to fill any unfilled positions. For the most part, any filled positions, I could say at least this fiscal year, we have really scrutinized the departments to make sure that's a need.
Well, listen, Delano, that's all well and good. You understand what you guys need to do, but as far as this control board going on the record, I think we got to amend the language.
Oh no, I'm okay with that, and I support that. I mean, we thank you guys for that.
Right. So, is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we can move to a vote on the recommendation. All those in favor of changing the language of the recommendation, say aye.
Fred, please read the change to us.
Okay. So the recommendation, Jeanette, would you, just so we're all on the same page?
Yes, our recommendation is that, first of all, a gap plan should be developed to address the shortfall. And the second recommendation is that the city consider implementing vacancy control measures.
Okay, that's the motion we're voting on at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
It passes. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the analysis with the recommendations as approved by the staff, which means that we would approve or support the CBA contract, the police.
So moved.
Okay, so Jeanette, second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It passes. Are there any further questions on any of this? If not, yes, Director Sanfilippo?
No, I didn't have anything.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Are there any members of the public present that would like to comment on items to discuss today? For those of you who have not been with us before, we always have a public comment period at the end of our meeting. No? Hearing none, then this concludes the meeting of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. Is there a motion to adjourn?
As moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I think the city appreciates this and the PBA appreciates this. And I think this will help us all get a new police class in time to be able to have our services continue. So thanks, everybody, for doing this special meeting on
Bye.
such short notice.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank
everyone.
you, and thanks to the staff for spending the last 48 hours putting all of this together.
Happy New Year, everybody, and go Bills.
Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes. I think we can stop recording at this